Good evening. I'll call the meeting to order at this time. If you will, please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I will call on Mayor Pro Tem Scott if he will lead us in the invocation, please.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight, Lord, to do business for this community we serve in, and we're so thankful for Father. We just pray that you'll help us make the decisions that are successful for the citizens, for the businesses, Lord, for the citizen, for our people that live here, Father. We pray, Lord, for those that have a loss this month, Lord, you'll be with them. We also pray that you'll just allow us to remember the true meaning of the season we're coming to, Lord. All this we ask in your Christ's name.
Amen. You will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, gentlemen, you have the agenda in front of you. We do have a couple of known changes to the agenda, one being removal of presentation number 1, the proclamation recognizing Anita Liverman for her dedicated service to the Appearance Commission. Ms. Liverman is under the weather this evening and will not be able to attend. And the other is to add a couple of items to the consent agenda, consideration and request for approval to adopt resolution number 638 to exempt the water and sewer rate study from bidding requirements, and also to approve a contract with UFS to conduct the study. And the next item is a special event. Let's see, Powers and Thomas Midway Entertainment LLC is requesting approval to operate a carnival at Carolina Premium Outlets that will begin on April the 8th. The event would begin, would begin setup on April the 8th, and the event will begin on April the 11th and end on April the 21st. And the items of operation will be from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. And I think you have those at your desk. You've had the opportunity to look over those. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda with those items.
I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Our first proclamation this evening is recognizing April the 18th, 2019 as Electrical Lineman Appreciation Day. I ask Ted and Lineman Hunter Parker, if you will, come to the front. Thank you, gentlemen. How are you? Good. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for all that you do to keep the lights on in our community. It's not an easy job, and it's a very dangerous job. And we certainly, from a town staff and a town council, and me personally, I certainly wanted to thank you very much for all that you do, your entire staff. So if you will, bear with me as I read this proclamation. This is a proclamation declaring Electrical Lineman Appreciation Day, April the 18th, 2019. Whereas the town of Smithfield honors the profession of lineman, as this profession is a selfless service steeped in personal, family, and professional tradition. And whereas electrical linemen are often first responders during storms and other catastrophic events, working to repair broken lines to make the scene safe for the citizens of the town of Smithfield, as well as other public safety workers. And whereas electrical linemen work on the town of Smithfield's power lines 24 hours a day, 365 days a year to keep the electricity flowing. And whereas to the danger of their work with thousands of volts of electricity high atop power lines, these linemen put their lives at risk every day for the citizens of the town of Smithfield, with little recognition from the community regarding the danger of their work. And whereas the United States Senate in April of 2013 first recognized the efforts of electrical linemen in keeping the power on and protecting public safety, and has designated by resolution the annual celebration of a National Lineman Appreciation Day. Now therefore, I, Andy Moore, Mayor of the Town of Smithfield, along with the Town Council, do hereby proclaim April the 18th, 2019 as Electrical Lineman Appreciation Day. And we call upon the citizens of the Town of Smithfield to recognize and appreciate the hard work, innovation, and dedication that these public servants make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Thank you very much. Okay, our next item is recognition of the Public Works Department for being awarded the 2018 North Carolina Main Street Champion. And I'll ask Sarah Edwards if she will come forward and present the award.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Before I present the award, gentlemen, if I can have you step to your left a little bit so everybody can see. My name is Sarah Edwards. I'm the Executive Director of the Downtown Smithfield Development Corporation. And at each North Carolina Main Street Conference, which was held this year, March 12th through the 14th in Salisbury, we are able to recognize a champion for their contributions to downtown Smithfield and making it a great place. So this year, our champion was the Town of Smithfield's Public Works Department. And I'll let the video do a lot of the talking.
Town of Smithfield Public Works Department, Smithfield. You know how some people put in the essential hard work and not look for recognition and can always be counted on? Smithfield is very fortunate to have a group of these people in the Town of Smithfield's Public Works Department. They keep downtown Smithfield looking great, whether they're installing flags and banners or keeping it clean. They are instrumental in downtown Smithfield events, working before and afterward to get downtown back to normal soon after an event that attracts thousands. When it snows, they are among the first people downtown, shoveling sidewalks so that businesses can open. They can even be found out in the middle of a hurricane checking on downtown. Although their work is often not seen by the public, their contributions to downtown Smithfield are of tremendous importance and are very much appreciated. That is why they are North Carolina Main Street champions.
A very well-deserved round of applause. And to you all, thank you so much for your work downtown. It really, the work that you guys and your staff do makes my job so much easier.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item this evening is the presentation of the 2018 Police Department Officer of the Year Award. And I would like to call upon Chief Powell to make this presentation.
Mayor, Council, thank y'all for giving us just a few moments. The Police Department recognizes one officer annually as Officer of the Year. This employee is nominated by secret ballot, completed by every member of the department. The officer receiving the most votes is then reviewed by a recognition committee consisting of the patrol captain and department lieutenants, who then make a recommendation to me, who has the final say as to the award goes to. This year, Officer Detective Sergeant Wood was nominated. He's sergeant in the Investigations Division. Dale's been with the department since November of 2000. Before that, he worked for 8 years with the Sheriff's Office and 2 years with Benson PD. Started with patrol with us and was promoted as a sergeant, and has been transferred to investigations and has been in investigations since. Sergeant Wood has worked very hard in investigations and has handled many difficult cases during his tenure in law enforcement. He is always very professional with his victims he deals with on a daily basis. And Sergeant Wood is always willing to help new recruits with issues that arrive with difficult cases that he investigates. Sergeant Wood is a major asset to the police department and the town. And Dale has got a little over a year left, and he'll be retiring from us. So at this time, if y'all would join me in congratulating Sergeant Wood as Officer of the Year for 2018.
Congratulations, Sergeant Wood. Thank you very much for your service. Thank you, Chief.
Congratulations.
While Sergeant's making his rounds, I'll call on Officer Damon Kinney to the front, please, for administering the oath of office. How you doing, sir? I'm all right. How are you doing? Good. Your mother. All right. Well, great. Welcome. You ready to take your oath of office, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you will, please place your hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I, Damon Justin Kinney, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, that I will continue to be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, that I will be alert and vigilant to enforce the criminal laws of this state, that I will not be influenced in any manner on account of personal bias or prejudice, and that I will faithfully and impartially execute the duties of my office as police officer according to the best of my skill, abilities, and judgment. So help me God. Congratulations, sir. Be careful. Hello, sir.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
All right. You ready for your oath of office?
Yes, sir.
All right. Who do you have with you this evening?
My oldest daughter, Olivia, my youngest daughter, Carson, and my wife of 15 years yesterday, Cameron.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Happy anniversary. All right, sir, if you will, repeat after me, please. I, Joseph Philip Heck,
I, Joseph Philip Heck,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
that I will continue to be faithful
that I will continue to be faithful faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities
and authorities
which are
which are
or may be established
or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor
and I will endeavor
to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state,
the Constitution of said state,
not inconsistent with
not inconsistent with
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
that I will be alert
that I will be alert
and vigilant
and vigilant
to enforce the criminal laws
to enforce the criminal laws
of this state,
of this state,
that I will not be influenced
that I will not be influenced
in any manner
in any manner
on account of personal bias
on account of personal bias
or prejudice,
or prejudice,
and that I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
execute the duties of my office
execute the duties of my office
as police officer
as police officer
according to the best of my skill
according to the best of my skill
and judgment.
and judgment,
So help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations, sir. Good luck.
I wonder where we should do it. Also need to see it's what types of out here.
Okay, gentlemen, we'll go ahead and get started with our first public hearing. This is not a quasi-judicial hearing, so therefore there's no need for anyone to be sworn in. And we will start with RZ-1901, John A. Whitley. And the applicant is requesting to rezone .11 acre tract of land from an R8 zoning district to the ONI zoning district. The property considered for rezoning is located on the northeast corner of South 3rd Street and Woodall Street, and further identified as Johnston County Tax ID 150-30016. This time I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I will turn it over to Planning Director at this time, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the Mayor went through this first slide. So the applicant, I don't know why it says Johnson County. We'll skip that slide. So this is a location map. It's corner of 3rd and Woodall.
Woodall.
Woodall. These are residential properties around here. This is a OICUD property, so it's a different zoning district. And this is the parcel the applicant would like to rezone to ONI. So to the north, it's OICUD, as I just stated. That's this property right here. In every other direction, it's R8 zoning, which is residential. So look at this request. Do you know why that's off the screen? Eric's not here. To consider the rezoning, for ONI rezoning, the parcel is .11 acres, which is less than the minimum district size. This particular property shares a driveway curb cut with a residential property behind it. This property is entirely within the 100-year floodplain, so this would be an intensification of a property. Commercial use is more intense of a use than a residential use. in a 100-year floodplain. And it's also, because it's isolated and a very small property, it's more than likely considered spot zoning, which is prohibited or frowned on by the legislature. So because of these reasons, staff is recommending denial of the rezoning. Just a point of note, the planning board recommended approval. This item was before the planning board in 2016, and given the facts that was presented to them at that time, staff at that time had recommended approval. It was different staff. And as planning director, I've looked at the reasons for approval and denial of rezonings, and I believe a denial is the correct recommendation. And so my reasons are that we're creating a non-conforming O&I lot. The minimum lot district size, the lot size in the district is 6,000 square feet, whereas this property is only 4,792 square feet. Therefore, it would not meet structure setbacks in the O&I district. Off-street parking and handicap parking is likely to be difficult and may require variances because of the lot size. As I said, it's probably a spot zone. It's in the 100-year floodplain. Buffering, the required buffering between districts may not be able to be met. It's inconsistent with the comprehensive land use plan, which guides it for residential. And it's an encroachment of commercial uses into a residentially guided and zoned area. And I already talked about this slide. This is a slide of the 100-year floodplain. Again. And I mentioned that the planning department recommended. And with that, this is a consistency statement that staff is recommending. And staff is recommending that council consider the rezoning and make a decision whether to approve or deny.
Questions for Stephen at this time?
Mr. Winsman, you stated that there's residential all around it, but isn't there a business just beside this property?
Right, that is it's one property that was zoned O&I CUD, which is a district that we used to create. It's a conditional use district. And I don't know the facts behind that rezoning, but that's technically a different zoning district than O&I. So this would be a standalone O&I rezoning.
Any other questions this time? We hear from the applicant. I think the applicant is here. Do you have anything you'd like to share? So please come to the front.
Briefly, if I may, have all of you had the opportunity to read through the application that I presented?
And Mr. Whitley, I know you, but if you will, please state your name and your address for the record, please.
I'm John Whitley. I live at 2017 Mountain Laurel Drive. It's a Clayton address. I practice law at 219 Johnston Street here in Smithfield, where I have practiced for over 2 decades, as I said in my application. And I'll proceed from there if I may. I wanted to give you the opportunity to read the application if you have not had an opportunity to do so. Have each of you had an opportunity to read it, as I don't want to be redundant. Assuming that you have, I thought I had pretty good illustrative evidence till I saw all the illustrative evidence that you have seen today, so forgive me, just this little hardboard. But this is the property we're talking about down here. This is Travel Odyssey that's just beside it. You will notice that between Woodall Street and Johnston Street, this is kind of a "you are here" picture. This is where I practice law now. But in this area all the way down here on the eastern side of it, there's only one house where it's R8. That's the only house other than what is now R8, that is 317 South 3rd Street that I wish to rezone. And I will not overstate the obvious, but there's a natural barrier here. It's not, mention was made of spot zoning. Spot zoning is not just a bad word. It's not considered a bad thing if it's not arbitrary and capricious. When you consider the fact that there's only one house all the way to where the creek is here, this is the first home here across the creek. This is just pastoral setting here. But Woodall Street is a natural man-made barrier here. I would concede to you, as I did before the rezoning committee that recommended that it be rezoned, that if I had this property and I were trying to rezone it at this point, I would think that would be a difficult task. We've got the man-made barrier here, we've got Woodall Street, and again, we've only got one house, either on the eastern side or on the western side of this corridor between Woodall Street and Johnston Street. With respect to the 100-year floodplain, I think basically everything east of 95 is in it now after Matthew. But the fact of the matter is, I think personally the most significant things about my practice that you should know is that the impact on 3rd Street, which is a pretty heavily traveled corridor, would not be great from the nature of my business. Having practiced law for 39 years, I've learned to say no more than yes to a lot of things that are near my door, and I've narrowed down my practice to the point to where I would say very, very rarely would there ever be more than one car ever parked near my office to do business with me. There would be no parking on Woodall Street. One other thing that was mentioned to me was, what about Woodall Street? Because that's a more narrow street and it's a T intersection with 3rd. I would have a no parking sign there. I would not want anybody to park there. I think that's an unsafe corridor. I don't think it's wide enough for cars to park there. There is space to park 2 cars behind that office. Parked behind that office would be my vehicle and my secretary's vehicle. It's a shared driveway to the point that I allow them to share the driveway. That is Tom Burkall's house behind me. Tom Burkall appeared with me at the rezoning board hearing. More for moral support, I offered him to the committee, but they didn't need to hear from him. They know Tom, and they knew that Tom was in support of my rezoning. Tom is out of the state right now, so I didn't have him come back. Of course, every homeowner that was, as is required, I had the address for and were contacted by mailing with regard to this transaction. Nobody is opposed to its being rezoned as an office. I don't want to address more than needs to be addressed outside of my application, but only to say to you that I'm a native son, but for 4 years at Wake Forest and 3 years at Campbell Law School, I've lived in this community. I want to enhance this community. I wouldn't do anything to detract from this community. And when as I said in my application, again, I don't want to be redundant, when I saw this house, and I remembered who lived in it when I was a kid, and it upset me to see the state that it was in. Granted, it needs a power washing right now, but I certainly have improved it. If you would go by there now, you'd see a brand new corrugated metal roof, you'd see it repainted. The interior is immaculate. And refinished from top to bottom, and a place that we can be proud of. Some of the things that were addressed with respect to the rezoning was qualification under the American with Disabilities Act. This building would be, and I don't claim to be an authority about it, but I do know this. I didn't lose my horse sense when I went to law school and college, and there's about that much grade between my front deck and the sidewalk, and there's about 4 feet, or not the sidewalk, but to the walkway that goes into the front porch, and then the sidewalk. And certainly I could bring that in compliance with the American with Disabilities Act, and certainly would do that. With regard to the buffer, I can't expand the property. I can't make it wider, and I can't make it deeper. But I can tell you, and it's already been volunteered, there's a business to my north, and to the east is Tom Burkall, with whom I used to practice, and who has a good relationship with me, a good symbiotic relationship, and he's interested in the property and interested in it being uplifted, and I would work with him in any way possible to enhance the area. Finally, there is a fencing, a sight barrier at least, between Travel Odyssey and this property, so there's a barrier here. Lastly, I would just say to you, one of the things that should be of a concern to this committee would be signage and whether it would obstruct the view, because 3rd Street is a corridor that's widely traveled. Certainly, I would never do anything that would restrict this corridor, and I understand that I would be responsible to and would have to answer to the town and its restrictions and any other authority with regard to signage to make sure that there was no sight barrier. Sarah Edwards and I talked about this piece of property the other day, just yesterday before this meeting, and I understood that she would be here, and should this be rezoned, she invited me to become a part of the Smithfield downtown development, as I certainly would be, and would be a good patron there. And I believe she would tell you, as I certainly would advocate to you, and I don't want to shoot my foot off by talking about businesses continuing in this area, but I think, as I perceive it, the main goal is to provide more office space and more governmental space around the blocks here that are higher demographic areas, and moving business out into this corridor and outlying corridors. And again, there are businesses all along 3rd Street as it merges into 301. And hope you'll allow me to rezone that. I've put a lot of money into it, and I think it enhances the community. And I'll do anything I need to do to make sure it's in compliance.
Thank you, Mr. Whitley. Any questions from the council, from Mr. Whitley or staff?
Yeah, I have a question. First of all, does, you're talking about Tom Burkall, does he live in that house, or does he rent, is this a property he owns?
It's a tenement.
So he doesn't actually live there?
He does not.
Okay. So have you had a conversation with the people who actually live in the house?
I have not. That's a good question. That was asked of Mr. Burkall, and he had not talked with him about it.
Yeah, I thought it didn't have anything. I read that information too. So
I will tell you this. I have never had a problem with the tenants. I have owned the home for a couple of years. It is a shared driveway in a sense, but it is shared only in that there's a driveway that's predominantly on my property that I'm ready, willing, and able for them to use, because there's a culvert nearby, or a drainage place nearby, and they actually go not at a 45-degree angle, but at an angle to go beside their house to get behind it, and it's just never been a problem vehicular-wise at all for either of us to access.
Any other questions?
yeah, I don't actually have any problem, except so the question, I had some questions, not necessarily for Mr. Whitley, but for Stephen, related to this, so can I ask those questions too?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
If you wait on, anybody questions for him before I move on?
Well,
Okay.
we can go back and forth.
That's
Go right
okay.
ahead.
I'm just gonna make my comment too. My comment is that, if I was comfortable that, that Mr. Whitley was gonna live forever and do, business in that place forever, I'd have no problem at all with moving forward. I read your information, it makes logical sense. But, as a council person and as the, we're looking at the law, and the law, what we do affects us for infinite future. And that's the concern that we have, to make sure that not that your business doesn't meet the requirement or that would not be acceptable. It's what comes in behind you, because you want to live forever, and then what's going to happen then, And so we have to protect the future as we look at these things too. So I'm just saying that's what's bouncing around my mind too. So I had a few questions for Steve based on the evidence of fact, is what you were talking about. I understand that the former or the people in the past made some, that they approved it, but we also know that we've had some concerns about some of the decisions that were made in the past. I'm not saying it, and therefore that doesn't necessarily mean that there couldn't have been some mistakes made in the past. So as we look at the thing, we have to look at what it is today and then base our decision on the evidence that we have on the people that we have on staff today. That seems like it's a valid statement, because if we didn't trust you, then you wouldn't be in your position. Just saying. I mean, that would be what I would say. So the question is, I had some of these things that you wrote down here, these concerns that are down on this list on page 24 of your page, if you want to look at it. It said you reckon the denial because of these things. And like the first one, it said the resulting would result in nonconformity because it would not meet the structural setbacks of the IO district. So it doesn't qualify based upon the IO district's requirement. Is that correct?
By rezoning it, now it would become an OI property, and then structures would no longer meet the required setbacks in that district.
So it would not qualify.
You're creating nonconformities.
Okay, so that would, okay. And then it says, the next one says off-street parking would likely be difficult. That's in a matter of opinion, so I don't worry about that one. Because that means it's not impossible. If it says it would be difficult, does not mean it's impossible. So I don't care myself on that. But the next one says, the zoning of this parcel IO would likely be spot zoning, and that is prohibited. So is spot zoning illegal, prohibited? What do you mean? I mean, you said it before too. What do you mean by that?
I guess I'll direct that one to Bob, if that's okay. There are statutes about spot zone, statutes or court guidance.
The property to the north, regardless of how you classify it, property immediately to the north and adjacent to it is commercial, right?
It's an O and I CUD.
Yes, it's basically a business use.
It's a business use.
And the property next to it that's yellow is really blue, isn't it? Because it's a vacant field that attaches to the house that's blue.
I think it's guided residential.
It's just mapped wrong. I mean, it's basically commercial, right?
I don't know.
So, I mean, it is wrong to go take a spot on that map surrounded by residential property and make it commercial, okay? Here you have a pattern of commercial that except for the house at the corner, the Victorian house, large Victorian house at the corner, that is commercial all the way to Main Street, right? So in my opinion, spot zoning is bad, it's illegal. I don't think that's spot zoning.
And that's why we pay you to do your stuff. So I'm comfortable taking your opinion on it.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, that was my question on that. So then the question would be is how many, you said also in your report on page 25, it says, is a good idea to avoid rezoning that will create nonconformities and a need for variances. So how many nonconformities and variances would you anticipate if it was approved? So obviously if it was approved, then there have to be nonconformities and variances that would have to be done for the property anyway, correct?
There will likely be the need for a handicap parking stall and probably a staff parking stall, at least one. And then the issue is typically, in my understanding of handicap accessibility code, you need to have like the entrance closest to the parking lot be the handicap entrance within so many feet. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but that would be difficult because there's about 2 to 3 feet in the back elevation change between the grade and the rear entrance. And that maybe could be overcome through some site changes, I'm not sure. It may create the need for a variance. In other words, you may see this applicant going before the Board of Adjustments for variances because he can't do what he wants to do to turn this into a commercial property to meet the code.
So all these things would, so the question is, since you'd have to have variances and then there'd be nonconformities. So what would be the next step? If we approved as is, we approve it, what's the next step? I mean, do it go straight into business, or do we have to have these things resolved before he can go into business? I mean, what happens?
Well, to open it up as an office, he may need to provide a site plan showing handicap spaces and all that. And if he can't meet the UDO, he'll have to ask for a variance. So then it's going to be back before the Board of Adjustments, and his ability to move forward will be dependent on that outcome.
I just have one more question, or one more thing. So the question was, like I said, I don't have any problems at all with what Mr. Whitler wants to do. The question is, and I think we had this answer before, but I'm asking again anyway. You know, we put restrictions on things and all. Is there? It'll sound ridiculous, but okay. Is there any way you can put a conditional thing that this business is fine as long as he has it, but when he leaves it, then it has to go back to the board? That's what I'm saying. If we could, life would be good. I'm ready to go today. But we can't, right? Once it's done, it's done.
May I respond?
Please do.
In reference to those issues? Unless Jesus comes, none of us are going to leave this place alive. I understand that. I'm fine with that. I know you are. I think common sense and horse sense at play here. If you were to look at this home, you would see it's a bungalow-style home. It's virtually on even ground at the front of it. I don't know where someone would park. I'm not suggesting that everyone who needs a parking place string their parking throughout 3rd Street. I will say to you that when there are jury trials and sessions going on, they're all along the 3rd Street corridor. I will say to you that there are people that park on the western side of 3rd Street all day long. It's a wide street. I'm not condoning or condemning that. I'm making that observation. But I will tell you that there's a sidewalk all around that piece of property. It's right on the corner. It depends upon where someone exits their vehicle. If someone exits their vehicle on Woodall Street onto the sidewalk, it's virtually level, but for that height in front of a deck, which certainly, horse sense tells me, can be brought into compliance with the American with Disabilities Act, about which, or with which, I'm no expert. I think there's a lot of concern about buffers. I can't make this fraction of an acre meritorious for a buffer, but nobody's adverse to it the way it is. And the demographics in this area are going to be no greater with my business than they'd be with a tenement. I can tell you that for sure. It is my goal to continue to practice law for several years. You can certainly see windshield appraisal, I'm not 20 anymore. But I intend to practice law for several more years, and I intend for this to be a commercial piece of property. Life throws you curves, but I advocate to you that this is a piece of property that will enhance the community more as a business, because a business person is going to keep this property in better shape than a tenant would. And I'm a landlord, and I can tell you that's true. With respect to the floodplain, I know it was asked at the rezoning board meeting, it was asked, well, what's happened different between then and now? Then being when I made the application before and the rezoning board approved it, but I asked them to withhold sending it to the town in the aftermath of Matthew. And basically the response was Matthew and administration. Now, former administration doesn't make it right. with all due respect, maybe current administration doesn't make everything perfect. I don't think it needs to be varied in the legal sense of the word significantly to be in compliance commercially. But whatever it needs, I will provide because I want to practice in it commercially.
I don't know that I have a question. I have some comments. You know, when we look at growth of the community, and you look at growth here in Smithfield in particular, I go over to 2nd Street. A county office used to be a residence. It was a residence and a photography and artist studio. You go 2 houses down where Mr. Spence's office is, it used to be a residence. You go over here to Church Street where my office is, it was a residence. It's now a business. And when I had to rezone that property to open my office there, what we talked about at these town meetings was natural boundaries or man-made boundaries. And the theory is that you don't, when you're rezoning, even in growth, you don't want to go past a natural or man-made boundary. And John's already mentioned the roadway, but when I look at this property on 3rd Street, the ship sailed. We jumped past the natural boundary in the ditch and opened a travel odyssey. The land across the street between the Gaskins and the creek, I don't think it could ever be developed as residential property. I look at the property that Mr. Spence asked between the frame shop and Travel Odyssey. It may still be zoned R8, or that may be a mistake, I don't know. If that's ever residential property, it'll be an apartment complex. I understand the parking issue too, but what business in downtown can provide parking? I mean, we rely upon street parking and municipal parking lots. And that's one of the barriers to growth of our downtown is that nobody wants to walk. You go to Raleigh and visit a downtown business or downtown office, you're going to park your car and you're going to walk a few blocks. But that seems to be an impediment to our growth. And I agree with everything Mr. Whitley said. We got a natural boundary there. If we were across Woodall Street, I would have a problem with it. Although I think all those properties are renters. At least right there on that corner. I understand your concerns and your questions, but I think the ship sailed years ago when we crossed the creek, went to Travel Odyssey. And I think it would be an enhancement to the community. Would you agree with that, Stephen, that we crossed a natural boundary before your time?
I won't deny that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ashley. Anyone else?
Is it true that 6 members of the planning board, they did vote for this project?
That is true.
Okay.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Anything else from you guys at the time?
No. Mr. Whitley? All right. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, Mayor.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor? Okay. This time I will entertain a motion to approve, deny, or table this request.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that the council approve this request, supporting the planning board's decision and evidence presented.
That would also, part of that motion, is that a statement of consistency?
Yes.
The comprehensive growth.
As I highlighted in the notes.
Okay. I have a motion to approve. Second. And a second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Whitley.
Looking forward to having you downtown, continued downtown.
I hope we don't have to visit you, though, but
Okay, the next 2 items this evening are public hearings, and those are quasi-judicial public hearings. If there is anyone wishing to speak for or against either one of these, this is SUP 1903 for Will Rowland and SUP 1905 for Bonnie Godwin.
there's anyone here wishing to speak for or against either one of those, if you will, please stand now and be sworn in by the clerk. And the applicants, if they're here as well. Yes.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you. As I stated, the first item this evening is SUP 1903, Will Rowland. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow for a church or place of worship on a property located within a B3 zoning district. Property considered for approval is located on the southeast side of the intersection of West Market Street and Whitley Drive, and further identified as Johnston County Tax ID 150-86028. This time I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
I move we open the public hearing. Second.
Motion is second. All in favor? Turn it over to the planning director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. So the applicant is Will Rowland. The property, as you said, is at the intersection of West Market Street and Whitley Drive. The owner is Larry Stanley. So the proposed use is a church place of worship. A couple months ago, we amended our ordinance to allow churches and places of worship in such properties. This particular property is 1.1 acres. It's the B3 Highway Entrance Business District. It's a minor shopping center by use category. So this is Market Street. As you can see, there's kind of the whole front of the building is kind of open driveway with direct access onto the highway. Same on Whitley Street. Only at the corner is the intersection protected from vehicles traveling, and a little bit on this end. It's R10. Well, you hear some pictures here of the property as well, if you can see that. So it's wide open to the highway and also on this side. So the property is surrounded by residential on the north and west. It's a B3 business across the highway and to the south. So the proposed church would have about 1,800 square feet of space in the shopping center. It would have seating for about 30 people, about 1,400 square foot worship space. There would also be about 228 feet of office, a small kitchen, and a little bit of storage area. As I stated, churches are permitted use in the B3 district with a special use permit. They must comply with the supplemental regulations of 7.32. And these are the standards. There must be adequate parking. It should not significantly increase traffic on the local roadways within a residential district or neighborhood. It doesn't do that. In the B2 and B3 districts, the land should not substantially decrease vehicular or pedestrian traffic or inhibit business activity for adjacent commercial businesses during the business hours. This church would be there at the time when the businesses are generally closed. There's actually not a lot of business use in there at present. There's a print shop, and presently there's a beauty salon that's open very part-time, and a furniture store that is only open upon appointment. So there wouldn't be displacing any traffic at this point. The future land use map is B3, so this is a supported use in the comprehensive plan. There's no flood, environmental risks associated with it. The biggest issue is egress from the site. You know, if you can imagine, right now it's a business district, cars come and go, it's usually one car at a time, and it's a low volume shopping mall. The biggest concern staff has is a church service ends at, let's say, 10 o'clock on Sunday. All the people get in their car and they all try to rush to get onto the highway all at once. It could present a traffic issue, safety issue, being so close to the intersection and being on a highway. So staff's findings of facts and the recommendation of approval is that there be someone directing traffic onto Whitley Drive as opposed to the highway at the end of church service so that there's more of an orderly departure from the church service to not present a traffic issue. So with that, unless you would like, I could read the findings of fact, but they're all in support of that notion that for safety reasons, there be some access control at the end of church service with a parking attendant. So Planning Department is recommending approval with the condition that a traffic attendant be on duty after each worship service to prohibit cars from exiting directly onto West Market Street and to direct cars to Whitley Drive for egress from the site. Staff is recommending you review the petition, conduct the public hearing, make a decision based on a finding of fact with the condition staff has recommended. Any questions?
I have a question. Sure. Mr. Winter, can you define traffic attendant? Can that be a volunteer like most other churches have? They have somebody that takes care of that role. Is that what your intentions are?
That could be a volunteer.
Okay.
I just would like, I think it would be negligent of staff to not have some control, since it is probably a 60-foot wide frontage with no access control whatsoever onto a highway.
I didn't know if you were just trying to say they should hire somebody to come do that, but they can do that with
They can do that themselves.
Thank you.
Okay, of course, I live on the corner, down the road down there. The question is, we have other churches that get out. And first of all, I don't think church is going to get out at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, but that's a different story. Just saying. But there's not a lot of traffic on 70 during Sunday anyway, so you're not going to have a rush of people coming out on 70 down that time of period on that road anyway. So I think though, in a way, we may be asking things that I don't think that necessarily is something that they have to do, because I don't see, I live on that road over there, I don't see that much traffic. I don't see it as an issue personally, and like I said, it is my community, I don't see that. So I think we're asking them something that really, because then what do we ask? We ask the other churches we have on that road to monitor their traffic flow out on the highway. We don't do that. I think that they're responsible people and they can drive just like anybody else can. I don't know who the church is, don't know anything about it, but I just don't agree with it. Now the question is, do we think that if they're going to convert that shopping center to a church area, that we require some type of a barrier so they don't have an all-out thing? I don't have a problem with that. We want to make them do an addition to the property. You know, we did that. We've done other things for with the other church that we put in, requiring them certain things like shutting off certain exits. I think we did that with Spring Light or whatever we made some, didn't we not? Made some modifications. I think that, you know, if we want to put them, make them require them to put some type of barrier up, I don't have a problem with that, so that they only come in and out of one entrance over there during, and they could even have put some type of cones if they wanted to during the day. I don't care. I just don't think it's fair to ask them to do that as far as putting somebody out there to monitor traffic. It kind of makes me think like they're children and they're not. They're adults and know how to get out on the highway. I just don't think that's fair.
So can I make one comment?
Please
just
do.
while you're on the same thing? I don't know about the fairness, but since you're already speaking on this, I just wanted to put my 2 cents worth for what it's worth. So we don't have any sidewalks in that area, and Whitley Drive is a residential area. So now and I do see people walking in the neighborhood, all right, because I am over there frequently, and they're walking on the street. So now we're asking to dump all the traffic onto a residential street with no sidewalks, and in my opinion, that is more of a danger than asking them to go out onto 70. So that's just my 2 cents.
I agree with you wholeheartedly since I live on Whitley Drive. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That was another concern I had too. So the question is, could we require, I understand what you're saying as far as it's all wide open. So the question is, could we require them to have some type of, so they can restrict that exit point on that big, instead of everything out, that there's only a limited space. I mean, we reduce the amount of egress on 70. Because that's really the concern, is that you think you can have all 10 cars lined up at the same time and say, go. You know, which I don't think is going to happen. But some people like to talk longer after church than others, so I don't think everybody's going to leave at the same time.
My response to that is, first of all, if there is a hazard or a concern that you have with the church, we can put reasonable conditions to protect against that. It was my concern that maybe 30 cars, let's say it's 30, if that's a full house and everybody wants to leave in a hurry to go out for breakfast, that you get cars, 2 or 3, kind of pulling away from the church at one time, and one doesn't see somebody coming, it's an accident. I didn't feel like it was one that I wanted to be responsible for. But if the council feels there is no safety issue, I don't think it's legitimate to put conditions on controlling the egress from that site if there's no safety concern perceived by the council. And in my solution, I believe, was maybe less onerous on the church and the property owner, simply having some access control rather than requiring physical changes to the mall as a whole. So if there is no concern, I would strike my condition and approve it without any conditions other than that they meet the UDO. If there is a concern, the conditions should address that concern.
The property does have ingress and egress on both sides of it.
Yeah, but it's just uncontrolled. It's wide open.
There's probably not enough room to put a barrier or some type of there. That doesn't make any sense to me because we're asking them to move the building. It seems to me that it's not been an issue thus far, and there's been numerous businesses there, and the other cars are not going to be there in the afternoon. So to me, let them make their own decision about the traffic. If they want to put some traffic cones out and have an attendant, let them have that right. But, asking them to turn down Whitley Drive, to me, that's not I would ask them to make a right turn on 70. They have to go in that direction anyways, then they could possibly cross over. But I think that even stating that is not necessary because most people are going to go that way anyway. I'm excited to see new businesses come and occupy spaces.
Any other questions, comments at this time? Okay. The applicant is here and I think has been duly sworn. Is that correct? If you will, please come forward, sir. If you will, please state your name and address for the record.
Will Rowland, 9630 NC Highway 50 North Anger.
Mr. Rowland, you heard the testimony of our planning director. Do you have any additional information that you would like to share at this time?
I like what he was saying about the parking. I don't have a problem with having somebody at the door telling them to at least go out one at a time, not in multiples. I totally agree. We do a lot of business with Jamie Stanley, so I'm in and out of that property a lot. With trailers, without trailers, and also know how hard it is to get in and out of the property. I'll make sure that they do recognize what they're doing and even go straight across and use that service road that goes around in front of the car light and comes out at the stoplight by Rose Manor.
Okay. Do you agree with the testimony that planning director stated earlier? Thank you, sir. Any questions for the applicant? Council at this time? Okay.
Well, I do have a question.
Sure.
When we amended the ordinance regarding LifeSpring out there on 301, one of the things we talked about, one of the findings of fact were one of the facts found, not the findings of fact, but every other tenant in the strip mall, if you will, did not object to the church going in. Do you know, are any of the other tenants in Jamie's building, are they all on board with this?
Yes, sir. We had to get in touch with them to talk with them about using their actual spaces if we needed them. Mr. Stanley did send a paper in for us or for you guys to see that we can use the parking lot up to 4 spaces that some of the people will get there, like the lock room or whatever it's called, the escape room, yes. They're right beside us, and he comes in, he said between 12:30 and 1 that he would like to make sure he has at least 2 parking spots, but people don't come in until 1:30, 2 o'clock, by appointment also. The furniture guy, we talked to him, he's very excited about it. The rest of the people are so sporadic, they're not there on Sundays, so Jamie had talked to him, but I personally have not talked to him.
You've not heard any objection to
No,
the
sir.
church going into this space?
They were encouraging, so somebody be there on Sunday.
What hours are you planning on working on
We'll be there between 10:30 to at least 12:30 at the latest.
We only have one service a week? Is that-
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Or planning director? If not, I will entertain a motion to close. Have a motion to close the public hearing and a second. All in favor? Motion carries. All right, gentlemen, we do have the 8 findings of fact. You either go through those individually, or I'll accept the motion.
Mayor, I move we approve findings of fact 1 through 8. Second.
Motion and a second to approve findings of fact 1 through 8. All in favor?
Mayor, I move we approve the request.
Second.
Without the condition.
Without forcing them down Whitley Drive.
Yeah, without the
There's no
condition.
conditions in my motion.
Okay. All right.
No condition. Thank you.
I have a motion to approve with no conditions. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which again is a quasi-judicial. If someone came in after they were sworn, we had people swearing in earlier. If you came in after that and would like to speak on this, which is SUP 1905, Bonnie Godwin, please stand now to be sworn in by the clerk. I don't see anyone, so we will move on. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow for a residential dwelling on property located within an ONI zoning district. The property considered for approval is located on the north side of North Street, approximately 100 feet east of its intersection with North 7th Street. The property is further identified as Johnston County Tax ID 150-10047. This time, I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing. Motion and a second. Second. Motion and a second. All in favor? Okay, turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The applicant is Bonnie Godwin. So the proposed use is a single-family dwelling, which is a special use permit in the ONI district. Existing use is non-residential. It's been used for an office for a good number of years. It's an existing old house that was converted to an office use. As you can see here, the ONI district starts 2 houses in from the corner, and the houses further to the east are all office uses, or at least have been used for office. Some may be vacant. It's hard to know at this point. Adjacent is the gastro office, and I think there's a hospital-owned office or house next door to that. I'm not sure if it's used for storage or what it's used for. And there's a dentist beyond that. I got pictures here of the front of the building. So it looks like a residential home from the front, driveway on the right-hand side. The rear of the home is a large parking lot connected to all the other ONI businesses there. So a giant parking lot was created in the back. The backyard's all parking. I already described the surrounding land uses. The applicant wishes to change this back to a single-family home because it's been difficult to attract a commercial tenant. As I said, the 3 properties to the east are all former family homes that are used for offices currently. Talked about the shared parking in the rear of the home. There doesn't seem to be any shared parking easement that staff could find, kind of formalizing the cross-access between these lots. Other properties, clients could be using any part of that parking lot at any one time, which would include this property. So these are the adjacent owners. There's more than enough parking for the residential use. As I said, there may be a possibility that business users could end up using the parking in the rear. Future land use map shows this as medium density residential, so the use would be consistent with the comprehensive plan. There's no flood risks or any environmental issues related to this property. Finding of facts, staff's finding of facts support this request. And with that, Unless you have specific questions, Planning Department is recommending approval of the special use permit request with the simple condition that the applicant use the property in accordance with the UDO. So the council is requested to review the petition, hold the hearing, and make a decision with a finding of fact.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the planning director at this time? Seeing none, the applicant, I believe, is here. Yes. If you will come forward, please. If you will, please state your name and address for the record. Ms. Godwin, is there any other additional information or anything that you would like to present to the council at this time?
We bought that property, I'm not for sure, a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. When we bought it, there was a commercial person in there. Their contract had run out. We did not know it. We have not been able to rent that property since then. And there is probably as much residential around the corner. It's a big mixture. We have a demand for residential, but not for commercial.
Do you agree with the testimony that the planning director just presented regarding your
Yes, it was
case?
all positive for me, so yes.
Okay. All right, thank you, ma'am. Okay, any questions for the applicant or for planning director at this time, gentlemen?
Do y'all know the history, any of the history behind this property, whose office was there?
I don't know whose office Jimmy Flowers owned it. And I really don't know who it was. And the parking back there, I think, belongs all to that property. I don't know, I couldn't understand what you were saying.
Yeah, there's a large parking lot behind all those buildings, and the parking lot's attached to all those buildings. The whole rear yard is parking.
Yeah, but I have more than enough parking back there to more than supply a single-family home.
But those properties used to be single-family homes, and pretty much all of them became doctor's offices.
They did, and there's just not the call for it anymore for any kind of business. I have actually searched out different people that have called for commercial in different locations. I have tried to direct them there. They're not interested in it. But I do have a high demand for residential.
One of those houses, it must not have been yours, the hospital bought to house some of the Lifelike people.
That home is there. It appears to be vacant, but it is owned by the hospital.
But it was bought and used as a residential when the hospital bought it, I believe. That's what it was for, to
Yeah, most of
Lifelike people to be able to.
most of those houses back there were residential, and some have been turned into offices, and some of them are no longer in use. They're just empty buildings.
Any other questions? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against this? Yes, sir. If you will please come. Yes, sir. If you will please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Richard Lee at 709 North Street. As the counselor says, I've been practicing medicine now about a part of 2 decades, and here and just that area. I'll give you some background on it. That whole block that you're looking at is all business, been medical offices. I don't know how long. Now you talk about before I started. Dr. Tom Johnson had that in 709 North Street. He had it before me, and Lord, that's been probably you're talking looking back probably half a century there. And most of y'all probably remember Dr. Johnson. And so it's been a business. That whole block has been a business forever. Dr. Woodall owned the other one next to it, OBGYN. And he sold that to the hospital. And actually, they had an office there. That's what was going on with that. I don't remember any residential people there in that office. It was all EMT for a while, some other things, some lab work they had there. They're not using it right now, but they keep it, they take care of it. The doctor's singing, of course, is the next one down, surgery. And there's a bunch of doctor's offices on the back side too.
Dr. Story, was this Dr. Story's office?
Correct. The one you're talking where she's at is Dr. Story's old office. Now, I never met him, but he was there for years.
Yes.
Right, and right there with Dr. Johnson. And so that's all, they all put that together and and paved the whole area, and that's all been a business area forever, or at least a long time. What's that, 50 years. And then behind that, some other dental offices, but I don't know of anything really not occupied. I mean, the one from the hospital is not occupied. That's true. I don't know what they're doing right now, but they take care of it. And this other one was a business where you were at, and now he was a logistics outfit for a long time there. And
it's been empty already a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what it was. Other businesses were there too. So they had that's been a very, it's been pretty busy right there so far, and as an active area. Now I'm not as loud, I don't have slideshows or anything, but in any case, but it has been that kind of business type medical offices for years. Now, problems I see with it, and I see it every day, those driveways, I share the driveway with you. By the way, there's lines there. What I own is halfway the driveway is divided in half on both of them, and actually the line goes right through the driveways, goes straight in the back to the fences. That being said, you have a lot of EMT vehicles, large transport vehicles. You have quite a bit of activity coming in there with debilitated patients and whatnot. They're coming back and forth. A lot of times park right there to go see and go into the ramp to get them in the office. So I see that as a problem. If there's families or whatnot living there, that's not, I say it hasn't been residential for half a century. And it's fenced off to any other residential area. The other issue is that you could potentially have problems with kids running around there. Could be a problem. It's pretty busy back there with sick folks and other big vehicles coming through there. So I think I wish you would not turn it into residential because of the possibility, because it has been a business for over 50, a business of various types for over half a century. And that is how it was built there now. And number two, I think it's a hazard not only to the debilitated patients that may be coming in there, but with a lot more vehicles, a lot of other non-business vehicles, but also maybe kids if there is any kids in that area. It could be a problem. You can see it as a problem. So that's all I got to say. I don't know what else to say. I didn't know about this the other day, but I see it as real. Those are issues that kind of jump out at me. There may be others.
May I speak? For this to have been an office, a doctor's office, there is a bathtub in there that is set up totally for a house. If you're facing this house, to the left is residential. You have two houses I know that are residential, and across the street, everything, once you go to, and I don't know the addresses, but once you go to the end of that street, the following street, everything there is residential. There is nothing commercial. And I've been spending quite a bit of time at that house, and I've not seen all this activity this man is speaking of. I have not seen any activity.
Okay.
And, I don't think if this was such an office, there would be a bathtub. You've got a hookup for washer, dryer. You got another half bath. I mean, it had a stove hookup. So I don't know, I don't understand where it was being commercial half a century. But I can tell you for the last year and a half, 2 years, I've tried very hard to rent it. And I have not been able. I would prefer to rent it commercial, but it's just not out there.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb.
Is the lot size the way it's highlighted there, the way it's highlighted in the materials? In the materials, it shows the full rectangular lot.
It is.
Yes.
All right. Why is it different there?
That's the house.
Okay.
So the red circle basically is the property.
There's the lot.
Okay. All right.
So the question, so today, the back of the house is parking lot. that's shared with how many other businesses?
Sir, my parking is not shared. I have probably you can park 7, 8 cars back there. I'd have to go measure it. But it goes directly behind the house. It is not a shared parking with the neighbor.
Well, it may not be shared, but it's connected to the
Yeah.
entirety of this whole parking lot. And the house has a enclosed garage right here, and this is a large carport that holds about 6 or 7 more cars drive in underneath. And so the whole rear yard is paved and is parking. There is more than enough parking because this driveway comes in from the side, that's all parking. There's garage parking, and all this is parking as well.
My understanding was that it was all that in the back of shared parking. That's what Dr. Singh, Dr. Story was, Dr. Tom Johnson.
It's
and all.
shared physically. Yeah. I don't think legally there's a shared parking agreement.
This goes through, that line goes right through my.
Is that your property there, sir?
Right here. Yes, sir.
Okay.
That line goes right through that driveway, right in the middle.
Excuse me, what type of business did you say you were?
I'm a physician.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
physician.
Yes,
What
sir.
type of patients do you deal with? Does anybody?
All kinds, but primarily gastroenterology, those kind of problems. Well,
Sir.
digestive disease.
My daughter is a doctor as well, and she is part owner of this. She has no problem with it. Where her office is, there is a house right behind her, right beside of her. Everything on that street, she's here on Wilkins Street, right on down to the end, back around the other way, other than the orthodontist office, is residential. She doesn't have a problem. They have kids. We've not had any problems at all.
But this whole area,
So-
it's all business right
Now, so my question is, if it's converted into residential, and again, like I said, you assume that there's potential family member with children. So, are you going to be putting a fence or something up to protect the kids from running in the parking lot? Because whether or not it's your parking lot or somebody else's, but it's all one big giant parking lot. And so you don't want kids playing in the parking lot. So the question is, if you turn it into residential, are you going to put some type of a fence up or something to protect anybody from being running loose in the parking lot? I mean, I don't know, just a question. Because it's a parking lot in the backyard. There's no backyard, it's parking lot, right? Am I wrong?
No, I do have a backyard, but it is covered with asphalt.
So it's a parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, it's a parking lot.
But it is my parking lot.
I understand, but it's a parking lot that's connected, that's not barricaded from anybody else's parking lot.
You just don't like to mow grass, right?
I think you would have to have a surveyor, and I think you would get into some more rules and regulations and, but yes, that can be done.
Well, Dr. Lee, do you have a separate driveway from your office? Or do y'all use the same driveway?
Use the same driveway. All right, it's just split right down the middle, according to my understanding of the line. Right. I mean, split down the middle this way, all the way to the back.
Map.
All the way to the back.
With that.
My understanding.
Do you know, do most of your patients go in that way, or do they go in off the other way?
I think most of them come in that way, but some of them come around the back. Sometimes the vehicles come around the back, come out from this way. Right, the bigger vehicles. Sometimes they don't. They pull right up here to get in front of us, particularly debilitated patients with
Do you know?
on stretchers.
So Ms. Godwin, I'm sorry, but I have to set some ground rules here. So before we go any further, instead of addressing Dr. Lee, all right, let's limit our conversation to questions at this time. You've already had your opportunity to speak. Dr. Lee, you've had your opportunity to speak. Let's address the council's questions at this time, if you don't mind, or if not, we'll be going back and forth, I think, all night long on this one. So, go ahead, Dr. Lee. I think you were addressing Mr. Ashley's question.
I forget where we're at, to tell you the truth, but that was, but a lot of them come into the front of the office at this area along here, along this, because there's a way, handicap access that way to bring in, like from the nursing homes, patients from nursing homes.
Mayor, I have a question. It seems that the applicant is interested in making this residential. Dr. Lee stated that he wasn't aware of it. it's obvious that they have some things to work out. I would ask the applicant if you would like to wait 30 days and see if y'all can come up with some type of agreement, or do you want to move forward with this tonight?
I would like to move forward, but if the vote is going to be no, then that would not be in my favor.
It sounds like you may have an interested renter standing beside you, in my opinion.
I do have someone that's interested. I have had several people interested, and, you know, I don't know if I'm passing.
No, you're fine. Go ahead. Yeah, you can.
But he does have an entrance from the back. It's a wider entrance. It's more of a private entrance. It's for those medical buildings at the back. This is a narrow driveway that I don't know really why emergency trucks would even want to go through that driveway. It's more of a residential type driveway. Where he's talking about, that is where you have more of your medical traffic from the back, which does not involve my parking lot, my house at all, because I'm here, they're down there.
So would you agree, though, that if you had a family there and you had 4 or 5 kids back there playing basketball, put up a basketball goal, that would impact the businesses?
I don't know, because the family that I'm talking to would probably not have 4 or 5 kids, and most kids are in the house with their phone playing games. But, you know, I could see about a fence. I would be more than willing to look at that. I also am very interested to see who owns that driveway. If it was shared, if he might own the driveway, I own it, or if we actually, maybe it's the county-owned driveway.
I have 2 questions. Dr. Lee, on the other side of your house is another driveway.
Yes, it is.
Whose driveway is that?
That's shared, my understanding is split right down the middle also. That was me and the hospital, or it was Dr. Woodall, the hospital.
And the house that sits on the corner beside the property in question, is that residential now?
These 2 properties are residential.
Those 2 are residential.
The other driveway wasn't mentioned, I'm sorry, can I say this?
Sure, go ahead.
The one we talked about previously, the driveway here, between the 2, is, I say it's shared, split down the middle. Unless you find something different, and y'all guys have all the maps. That's my understanding of it. And then there is that's where their office, where the handicap access is. That's where they bring patients on stretchers up through there. That's why they do the transport people and whatnot park there quite a bit, actually.
Mr. Winston, do we have access to the property boundaries tonight?
There is no survey for this property, so I couldn't tell you for sure where the property line is.
So perhaps we could consider postponing this until we can gather that information in support, and hopefully they can work out their differences. I know we're in the middle of a public hearing, but
I'll be honest with you, I'm concerned about the impact on both of y'all.
I do too.
I'm concerned about the impact it would have on Dr. Lee if we grant it. I'm concerned about the impact it'd have on you if we deny it. And that's why we get paid the big bucks, so make those tough decisions. I mean, I would rather I would rather know more facts about the boundary lines, and is in fact, y'all, it is a shared ownership driveway. Is there anything to be done with site plans so there would be a minimal impact if it were residential? I can see where that could it could impact. If I was going to a doctor's office and I've got to drive through 4 or 5 kids playing basketball or throwing baseball in the backyard, it would affect me as a client or patient. But I'm very sensitive to your property rights too, so that's the difficulty.
Mayor, Ms. Godwin, do you object if we table this for 30 days?
No, and I think that's the only solution, is to try to find out property lines and see about putting a fence up. He does have a better driveway, a better way to come in that property. and, just let it go from, you know, see where the lines are. I think that's the only solution.
So we can't postpone, but since we are in the middle of a public hearing, I do need to see if there's anyone else. I'd like to go ahead and see if there's anyone else at this time that's wishing to speak for or against this. Okay. Not seeing any. Okay.
May I make a motion, we close the public hearing?
Second. A motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor? What's the pleasure of the council?
Before we take, I have one question though, then, within 30 days, if we do something else, we don't have a survey, so somebody's gonna do a survey between now and then? Or is 30 days just gonna be wasted? I mean.
Perhaps the people that are up there arguing have the facts at home. I mean, I'm not saying they gotta hire anything.
I didn't know if I was in no.
I mean, if it's shared driveway, it's possible there's something already recorded.
That is what I'm thinking, to try to see if something is recorded. And a lot of your older things, you know, some of it's not recorded or accurate, but if not, then we will have to share the cost of a survey.
There has to be a need somewhere.
Mr. Godwin, also, the staff will be glad to talk with you throughout this time and help, and you too, Mr. Lee, as far as figuring this out.
Yes.
So I would ask the staff to work with them to try to find a good conclusion here, because it's clearly objectionable both ways.
Right. Thank you very much.
I do have a question. Just state, Dr. Lee, you have actually more than 3 ways to get to the back of your office, is that correct?
Right, it'd be 3 total.
3 total, left and the right, and then around the back side. So,
I'm sorry, the paces don't come in the back.
right, so you got 3 ways to get in there, and we got to find out, okay, who owns that driveway. But if you somehow, well, y'all got to come and figure it out. But you know, he is not being denied access because he has plenty of ways to get back there, as far as from her aspect. Thank you.
All right.
If someone just, you got a good picture from GIS, with county GIS with some definition on it, so that those lots are blown up. It's one of those boards, and you can see something. It's so blurry.
But you could see property lines, but the accuracy of that, there's no guarantees, and you couldn't swear on it.
See what it looks like, except for possible declination from the angle of some airplane. But you can't see.
You could get a general impression.
You can't see anything.
Okay. All right, the public hearing has been closed. I have a motion.
Certainly, Mayor, if I hadn't already made a motion, did you make it? I'm making a motion that we postpone this for the applicant and the objectional people for 30 days.
To our next council meeting.
Yeah, that'll be fine. And she also has the right to revoke her application if she so chooses.
Okay. All right, I have a motion to table this to our next council meeting.
Second.
A second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. So just a question for the clerk, since we tabled this for 30 days as part of this public meeting, and do we have to re-advertise this? Okay, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, we will move on to citizens' comments. Anyone wishing to speak during this time, if you will, please come forward. I will ask you to please limit your comments to 3 minutes. I did want to also just mention, because I think I see at least one person in the audience that may have some interest in one of our business items, which is the adoption of the tethering ordinance number 498. I just want to remind everyone that that is not a public hearing. That is a business item. So if there's anyone wishing to speak on any, or actually on any of those items, but specifically on the business item, now's probably your opportunity. So, if you wanted to, just wanted to point that out. That's correct. This is citizens' comments. Come right up, sir. If you will, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Anthony Lee. I live at 802 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive for 23 years, my wife and I. I have 3 agendas, and I'll make it real brief. The first problem I had, back about 3 years ago, you guys subcontract a individual to do some poles, to put up new poles on that area, 303. One pole did some power surge, blew out my microwave. I did an application, you took care of that. Second situation was my wife called me from my office about a light bill that was $653.85. Took care of that because human error, someone read the meter wrong. Tonight I'm before you about my third problem. My driveway had gravels in it. On that corner, you guys service your water pump, your fire hydrant. You normally blow it on Martin Luther King or North Street. They happen to blow it this time in my gravel. Blew it out, messed it up. I approached those individuals. I think I spoke to 3 people, and I was hoping somebody from that department was here. I spoke with Chris, so it doesn't appear there's nobody from that department. What he told me, he asked me, did I know who the person were? My concept was that I would think that you would know where your employees are at all times, especially with that hydrant. Okay? So my thing is I need to know from someone, and I left a series of phone numbers. You can reach me at my home office, my home, 2 cells. I hope I don't have to get to the practice of standing in my yard, watching every time someone from the town comes around. Because if I have to find out who the person is, I expect the town should know that. I don't have to go up and ask this guy. I don't want to interrupt him doing his job. But if I had not been on my way to my office, I think I would have done that. And this occurred during the time of the government shutdown, so I had to be in Raleigh a lot, and I'm just now getting to this point. So if I don't have any questions by tonight, I will leave some information, and I hope someone will get in touch with me as soon as possible.
What was your address again?
802 Martin Luther King corner, Martin Luther King and North Street.
Is that, Mr. Manager, is that normally fire department or public works? You have any?
Not exactly
No,
sure.
it's not. It's normally the town.
Well, but would that public works or?
I'm not exactly sure what you're saying happened. You're saying you had
I
an
had
electrical surge?
my driveway.
Well, no, this was on
No, those are the 2 events.
He was talking about
Now,
previous ones. I
my
think those are already
driveway-
settled. This was where they were flushing out the hydrant. Evidently, they normally flush it out on one side and it goes out onto the street. This side
Normally,
it
the
was
fire department does their own flushing, but we haven't started flushing hydrants recently. But we did have a water leak up in that area that we repaired recently, so it could be related to that. But I'd be more than happy to talk to you and get a clear understanding of it.
Do you know
see what we-
about when it was? You have any, you know
The
when?
government shut down.
You know, okay, you don't have the date though.
No, I don't.
That's
But
okay.
Like I said, I spoke to Chris. Chris passed me on to his supervisor, and no one got in touch with me.
You know Chris? Do we have a Chris? Chris? You know,
Well, one of the gentlemen just got an award with the dreadlocks, was the first one I spoke to.
Oh, okay.
Then he passed me on to Chris.
Okay.
Then Chris
Okay.
passed me on to his supervisor.
So now we can probably track it from that. Yeah. Okay.
All right?
All right. Can you give the manager your contact information?
Sure.
And then he can follow back up with you on that.
Email.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it.
And my email.
Got it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else wishing to speak during citizens' comments?
I'm new to this. My name's Darius Rose. I've talked to Travis and Mr. Powell regarding the tethering ordinance. I just want to say thank you for everybody's support and standing behind it. I'm also working on the county and the state level, trying to push for a little bit better, stricter laws and better enforcement. Where we run into problems is on the local level, trying to get, like if we make a call on an animal freezing to death or whatever, it usually takes a gaggle of people to get mad, and you know, there's always this like gray area between animal control and sheriff's department or police department. But I recently learned that this has been proposed from town animal control and Chief Powell, so I'm very appreciative of it, and I just wanted to say thank you for standing behind it, supporting it. if you do pass it. I know it's pretty broad, but I did see the changes to the old and the new ordinance. So if there's anything we can do, I talked to Mr. Powell, rescue groups are behind it, that we're here to, I know if you implement it, you run a risk of people surrendering, you know, just different scenarios, right? So I'm gonna speak with him more and get a better idea of what we can do to make things better regarding animal cruelty, animal laws, because there's no shortage of it for sure. So I just want to say thank you for even considering it, bringing it up, and putting it on the table. Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, did you give your address for the clerk? Do you mind stating give your address, just for the record? Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
You read the ordinance? This is a business item. Have you read it?
Yes.
And just your opinion of it. It's not business item. Just want to know if you've read it. What's interested in your opinion, since it's customary? And this is the only time, so I was kind of curious.
Personally, my only concern is the enforcement of it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know it's not, you know, you're not out to get people. You know, we don't like to see people shamed on social media, or it becomes more of a educational part, right? Because either people don't know the difference, or, you know, there's all different scenarios. But from what we see on a rescue standpoint and see daily and what we deal with, you know, any change is better than none, right? And some situations we see with tethering, you know, it's pretty bad. Some are decent, you know, and I know it's not going to be instant, you know, but like I said, anything's better than the current situations that we see. And my main concern is just enforcement. You know, if we make a phone call, how's that going to escalate? And, you know, how are the fines or corrections going to be passed down or enforced, basically? Is that, yep. Joni, is that, I mean, you guys have any more to add to it?
Well, I didn't see anything in the ordinance about how it's going to be enforced. How is that easily?
So if you will come to the front, since this is a citizen's comments.
She doesn't like to speak in front of people.
Well, you don't have to. Let me just state that. It is up to you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you will, please state your name and address for the record.
Okay, Joan Santoro, 5127 US Highway 301 South in 4 Oaks, 27524. It's exciting to see when an ordinance comes about like this, because being in rescue for how long? 5, 6 years. We see a lot of things that is very disheartening. For instance, I have a neighbor who keeps his dog chained to his doghouse. That's plastic. And half the time the doghouse is on its side. He can't even get in it, can't lay in it. He drags it around the yard, you know. I never see him with water or anything like that. Those are the extreme cases that I'm talking about when it comes to the tethering. We see dogs who have their hind legs wrapped with a chain so tight that they have to get their legs amputated, or they wrap themselves so tight around a tree that they can't get to their water on a hot day. You know, those are the kind of instances that we're talking about that we want to try to get rid of. I volunteer with several rescues around the area and do a lot of transporting of animals from rescue to rescue, foster homes and that kind of stuff. And I volunteer with one specific one, mostly Paw Project, located in the Coates, Benson, 4 Oaks, Smithfield area. And we do a lot of, most rescues that you see, they stay from shelters, they find foster homes for them, and then they adopt them out. This particular rescue is a community outreach, and we try to work with the homeowner to allow them to keep their animals. So there's been several times where I've spent my Saturday helping them build a fence to get their dogs unchained from the tree that they've been chained to, or from a trailer hitch you know, that they've been chained to for a long time. So we actually go to the homeowner and without trying to cause any kind of friction or condescension or anything like that, you know, but we just ask, hey, you know, some people just don't have the resources or have the money to buy the pen or buy the fence, or maybe it's a elderly person that can't get out there and put the fence up themselves. So we want to offer our assistance. So we go up to them and just offer, you know, hey, let's come to your house next Saturday and we'll build you a fence, you know, for your dog. Most of the time it's just one of those pens you put up, you come buy from Tractor Supply. This particular rescue is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So, you know, we're based, it's based on a lot of fundraising and that kind of stuff, or just donations in general. And, but we do spend a lot of our time helping homeowners, you know, keep their pets. We don't want them to surrender because of circumstances. And also in the wintertime, we go around and I've done it with Darius quite a bit. You know, we go around and supply them with wood chips or cedar chips for their dog houses, you know, that kind of thing to help keep them warm. But I don't want the homeowners, if this tethering law is passed, my concern also is how are you going to get that information out to all the homeowners that own dogs in the town of Smithfield, you know, and what time frame are you going to give them to get this law, to comply, you know, with this ordinance? How's everybody going to know? Are you going to use flyers? You're going to put it on the television? You're going to do social media? Do you need all of us? I can get together 30 rescue people and we can go around and hand out flyers to all the homeowners. We'll do whatever we can to help, you know, you guys. And also people who have dogs tethered and they don't have the resources to purchase the pen, they don't have resources to help build it. We want somehow to get the word out that there are people out there that can help them, you know, change that. They don't have to give their dog up. I don't want you guys to worry that there's going to be a big influx of owner surrenders to the shelter because they can't afford to buy a pen, you know. And they also can't afford to be fined for having a dog that's tethered. So let's only work with the homeowner to find a solution, you know, to that. And there's a lot of rescues out there that will help, you know. So I guess my main thing is getting the word out about the law changing.
Yeah, so obviously tonight, this is a public meeting. It has been duly advertised. This is our first step of getting it out.
Right.
Right? And we will also post that on our website and our social media, as far as it's already been posted actually on social media as far as tonight goes and so forth. We'll continue to do that, and the changes will reflect on our website and so forth. So that's how we'll get it out. All right?
Okay,
Thank you. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak during public comments? Citizens' comments at this time? Okay. Seeing none, I will close that. All right, gentlemen, the next item of business is the consent agenda. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve it. Sir.
Motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. All right. Now we will move on to our business items. And the business item that is tonight is consideration and request for approval to adopt ordinance number 498 to limit tethering of animals in the town of Smithfield. Chief Powell, I ask you to come forward, please.
Mayor, Council, thank y'all for allowing me just a few moments. As we did last month, we come before y'all with changing the ordinance. We did go back and amend it somewhat to allow owners to have their dogs outside as long as on tethers, as long as the owner was able to be in constant view of them or looking after them. With some change in the weather and stuff, just different things in the ordinance. I won't read it all to you. Y'all got it. And that's kind of where we're still at. The comments, the feedback that's been on the social media, on Mickey's website has all been positive about it. So it's something that we would definitely have to educate our citizens on if it's passed, and would start with flyers, start with all the definite stuff that we're doing. And Jessica would have been here tonight, but she didn't have a babysitter. This is something that she's very passionate about because she does go around and work with a lot of the owners in town now. We get a lot of blankets donated during the year for the homeless people and other things, and I noticed the other day the supply was kind of low, and I didn't know where they were at, and she's been taking them around and putting them in people's dog houses. So she takes it very serious.
Any questions for the chief? Mr. Barber?
I'm still looking at the, on page 183 of our here. I'm still a little confused on the wording. The last sentence you got underlined in red, you looking at what I'm talking about? Where it says the animal shall not be tied, chained, fastened, or otherwise tethered to any stationary object as a means of confinement or restraining property, but must be an approved structure. Now, how is that compared to the, about the talking about tethering? It says can be tethered outside and unattained by using, so one is in an enclosure and one is not? I don't understand.
That's pretty much after the time frame that we set to where they could be tethered if you were watching them. If beyond that time frame, they would need to be.
After 10 o'clock, so the time, this is,
Yep,
this
they would
takes
either need to
effect
be.
after 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
They would either need to be in the pen or in the house.
Okay, I'm not sure if I understood that from that, but I'm just saying, so I mean, I don't know if I didn't understand it. But I see what you explained to me, I understand exactly what you're saying, and that makes sense, that corresponds to that. I'm just saying, I'm not sure if it's intuitive in its nature by itself.
Okay.
To get that, I don't know, I mean, what do y'all think? Because maybe mine is, I'm in Johnson County more too, so my mind might not work as fast as some others.
I think, Mayor, after looking over the policy, I think there is some things that's subjective or an opinion, but I think as we move forward, working with the citizens to enforce these rules and being, cooperative with their needs, I think we'll be fine. I know that the citizens have hugely supported this, and it's well overdue, so.
So maybe just for clarification, because it does have, it's underlined and everything with emphasis, maybe we just add there after the hour, or.
Oh, you're talking about on this section?
Yeah, right here,
Oh, yeah.
just add between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., before that sentence or after that sentence. I think that would
clarify that. Is that?
Yeah, is the outdoor storage, my question is the outdoor storage related to them being stored outside after 10 p.m.? Is that what it's supposed to be? So really, it's an outdoor storage, and you should say 10 p.m., 6 a.m. until 10 p.m. I mean, that's what he's trying to say. So section C, all section C is related to the animal after 10 o'clock at night from 10 to 6 a.m. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
So we could add it.
Yeah, we can add that. That's no problem.
Just for clarification. Any other questions?
I'm very pleased with it. I think, I know it's been talked about for a long time, so I'm time to quit talking and start building. So, I think it's great.
Well, since you brought up that provision, it says, but must be in an approved enclosure. Am I missing, is there anywhere where it says what an approved enclosure is? Did I miss that?
I know it spoke of things that could not be.
More or less the fenced-in area.
That was an
Enclosure shall be constructed
Yeah.
and maintained.
CI, is that?
CII.
It must be in an enclosure in compliance with CI. I mean, I'm just thinking, my argument would be, there's nothing that tells me what an approved enclosure
He
is.
says, in accordance with CI, is what it just said. It said in accordance with CI.
Okay.
Where he says enclosure, and after that, just put in accordance with CI. Where it takes care of that. And to Councilman Scott's statement, there probably, as we go through this, we're gonna find some things as we start looking at it, other people start looking at it, that we're gonna need to make adjustments on. But the point is, I agree with him, we need to get it out there.
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve the ordinance 498 as written with the amended text that you guys spoke of briefly.
Okay. Second. Have a motion and a second. Chief, you got what you need?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to business item number 2, 2019-2020 budget discussion.
Mr. Mayor, that is an item placed on the agenda solely for the purpose of recessing the meeting, be able to reconvene the meeting at a different time to address that item.
Okay. All right. So you want us to recess at a different time, or just?
I do want you to recess as long as you can come up with another date to meet the budget yet.
Okay. Anybody have a preference of dates?
How soon you looking? Next week?
Anytime.
Can I ask, how many times in this month do we need to meet?
That's up to the council.
I'd say we start with the next one, and then, the next meeting, but I'd say probably at least a couple. When you
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure something out.
Probably, I would say at least 2,
pass
I
it,
would
that's what I'm-
think. But we could always set more after we set the next one. We could recess to that date.
I'd ask that you try to stay away from the 8th, 9th, 10th. That's the only, I the student organization stuff that week, but
Okay.
the rest of the time we'll make it, I think we'll make it happen. We'll cancel what I got, so just tell me what you got.
You meet on the 11th? Yes. How about the 11th?
There's a strike meeting before that, but it's at 5:30, so it should be like, 6:30, no, 6:30?
6:30 good for you guys?
7 o'clock? 7 o'clock, can we do 7?
7, it's fine with me. Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah. What day y'all pick?
On the 11th?
11th?
7 o'clock on the 11th. We'll recess that time at the end of the agenda. Okay. All right, council members' comments. Anyone?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I got a few comments that I want to make. Most of this is going to be in reference, actually, to our budget. I know our online newspaper came out with a little tagline this week: Smithfield Council gets a homework assignment from Town Manager Scott. Well, as you know, go through the online news article, whatever, you'll see that Councilman Lee did not participate in this homework assignment. So I guess I was a bad student, but this just goes to show year in and year out, this is pretty much been a occurrence, kind of call it kicking the can down the road. Here again, the underserved area being underserved. Some of the big ticket items that were mentioned that day, 5 new police cars, airpacks for the fire department, new garbage truck, splash pad at Smith Collins Park. In this article, if you go down to Councilman Emery Ashley, he pretty much stated, he wants to finalize our plan to improve Smith Collins Park. Well, pretty much, I guess at the end of the lesson or whatever, it was stated, now let's prioritize some of the items, big ticket items. Councilman Dunn, the first thing he questioned was the splash pad at Smith Collins Park. Kind of what I'm getting at is, pretty much every year, we have residents from District 1, East Smithfield, that come in, and they list items, drainage, streets, everything that kind of needs to be done in Smith Collins, in East Smithfield. And then it's always, let's wait till the budget time. Where now we at budget time, and, even just, this big ticket item, it's going to be gone. But we've already talked about this, and it's just like, year in, year out, let's wait the budget time. But the manager has pretty much already set a budget. He's pretty much already told his department heads what needs to be done. So then it's the same cycle. You know, we talk about the Sarah Yard Life Center. It's only open 3 hours, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, a few Saturdays. That's 9 hours, 12 hours, okay? It was made mention that there was gonna be a bridge, I guess the bridge cards players, you know, they don't play, they having to move from the place that they're playing bridge. Councilman Scott mentioned the Sarah Yard Community Center on Tuesday evenings. Parks and Rec director, hey, that's fine, it's not being used. It's not even open then. You know, for something to be a community center, you know, only being open 3 hours out of a day to kids. And then, you know, a few times there have been police meetings in there. I've seen JCC and whoever had been meeting in there. It's not even being ran as a community center like it should be. But here again, you talk about the underserved area and how it's been underserved. So we could bring in people to play cards over there, but we can't even have it for the adults that are right there in the area that probably could walk over there and use it just to get out of the house, just to do anything. But we are right now, we in budget time, and everything is gonna be wiped away. And you know, this is, you know, I mean, I'm just one person, I'm just one vote, but I'm definitely gonna put this out here for everybody to hear, everybody to see. Just over the last 2 years, you know, that wooded area in back of Smith Collins Park, you know, it don't cost a whole lot of money to get the rest of that trim down. Over on Old Goldsboro Road at the Edna exit, it's a ditch right there. It don't cost a whole lot to need to go in the budget to put something up for somebody driving that ditch. The young lady, Karen Stevens, she was sitting back here earlier, and that's really where her parents stayed. That's where she grew up. But we in budget time, you know, but everything is gonna pass away. The residents are gonna come back, and you know, nothing's ever gonna get done. Gertrude Johnson Park, Wellens Park, the town don't even own those parks. You know, they been some talk about Gertrude Johnson Park, possibly them people wanting to take back over their park. We have a park over in Smith Collins Park. It's been there forever, over 40 years since I've been living. And now we got Councilman Johnson already talking about, hey, let's look for some more land, develop some more lands for some parks, because that's going to be our main attraction. So now we're going to go spend more money to buy more land for parks when we got a park that, as Councilman Emery said, you know, we're still trying to finalize the plan. What is the plan? What are we going to do? So as we go through the budget, I'm not going to do any homework. It seems to be pointless. So until the manager start directing, you know, some of the department heads, until some of the department heads actually see what some of the areas need, you know, all I can do is just keep calling it out. So pretty much my constituents can see what I'm trying to do. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Councilman Lee. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. Councilman Lee, with all due respect, when I asked that question, it wasn't to shoot it down, it was to look for the ongoing cost. And part of what we have to do up here is when we look at a project, no matter what it may be, no matter whose district it's in, to look at the ongoing cost of all those projects. So in no way was I looking to shoot it down. I was just doing some due diligence and research. So if that's the way you feel about it, perhaps you should speak up in these meetings and not speak up only at the council meeting.
I want it to be taped and heard so people can see.
And
I'm not going to keep talking. We need to talk about what? What is to talk about? This was some of the action that was done before you even got on the council. This has already been talked about. I'm not going to keep talking, but how people vote, that's what I'm going to bring up in the meetings. No, I'm not going to talk.
So when we have these work sessions, you don't think it's important to talk?
Talking. The manager knows. He knows what's going on. No, I'm not going to talk.
Councilman Barr.
You know, let me say that I would love for District 4, West Smithfield, to get half of the money that is spent on the other side of town. I'm going to tell you, What has been spent on my side of town? If we start talking, we don't have sidewalks, we have a park that we have to borrow from somebody, we don't have lights on it, we don't have anything. We don't have a ball field, we got a green grass spot out there, and we're talking about maybe putting some handicap maybe out there that we may not even get to keep. I mean, that's what we've got that Smithfield contributes to West Smithfield. Now, I'm on this council because my objective is to try to keep raising the issue that we need sidewalks on Wilson Mills Road, that we need to be spending money on that side of town, that we need to be moving that way. But I'm also not going to forget that we have needs on the other side of town. That's why I've been one of the biggest advocates to get a splash pad out, because I think when they eliminated the pool, it made it a hardship on people on that side of town to drive all the way or get the bicycles and ride through town. I think a splash park was a great idea. Koozie knows I've been very much supportive of that. We need to put stuff in there, but we aren't going to accomplish anything if we aren't trying to work together to achieve our objectives. Because our objectives is we want the best for our districts. I don't have to answer. I don't get one vote from that side of town. None. You understand? So I don't have to vote for anything for them. But that's not the right thing for the town of Smithfield. It's not right for those people on that side of town. I'm going to care about what everybody cares about. I'm going to focus on my needs, absolutely. But if I did not take consideration what the other people in other part of towns did, I should be ashamed of myself, and I should get up and walk out of this room. Because if we aren't committed to helping the town of Smithfield as a whole work forward, we are ashamed of ourselves. And I would certainly hope that our voters know that. Because I'm going to tell you, if my voters in West Smithfield don't agree with what I'm doing, and don't agree with what we're doing, they need to vote me out next time. And I'm okay with that. I'm not going to back off of that. And I think we all should be that way. But the deal is we're looking to see how we can improve our whole town while we're focusing on our individual. And I tell you what, I admire Councilman Lee's commitment to his community. He should be. That's what he should be doing. He should be representing them. I got no problem with that. I think that our at-large people need to be out there in our communities too, working hard with our people. I'm not saying they're not, but I'm saying it's come election time, I'm going to be getting them out there in my community to ask them, what are you going to do in District 4? Because that's what we should be doing. So I'm personally, I was going to tell you, and one other comment, I think I am proud to be a part of this council who voted in favor of this tethering law that other cities have talked about and not done anything about. That we can focus on making, and we're going to be, it's a great thing for people in Smithfield and all Johnson County to see that towns like ours take a stand, that we care not just about people, but about animals and creatures. That's important, that we care about things. And I hope that's what we do. But anyway, the point is, I think we're all focused on how we can do the very best for our communities, whatever their communities are, and as our town as a whole, because if one community is failing, we're all failing. I mean, that's simple enough. If we aren't successful in all of us, we're failing in all of us. So I would hope that certainly that we're striving to do that.
Thank you, Councilman Barber. Anyone else?
Mayor, I'll address the council. I did have a note to talk about the budget. I'd just like to point out that I feel like we're on a good start with the budget process. I appreciate staff's efforts. I know, Mayor, that the manager opened the floor for discussion, and there was little discussion, and each council had opportunity to speak during that time. I just think it's important that we to be proactive instead of reactive. We have to work as a team to get things done, and I don't think, I can speak for myself, never had any interest in doing anything that would hurt this community in any way. But I am very appreciative of what we've got going forward. Financially, the town is very stable. Now is a good time for us to be talking about the future growth of the town, and I think we have to look at the big picture instead of anyone's personal agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anyone else?
Yeah, I was just going to make the comment. In my opinion, Councilman Lee is right. Everything on that capital items that improves Smith Collins Park, I voted for. We have talked about it. We've talked about it for over 7 years I've been on this council. We need to make it a priority. We need to do it. And if we do that, we won't be having these type of discussions.
Thank you, Mr. Asher. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. I just had one thing. Most of you should have already gotten information or seen, but we do plan to have the Smithfield Cleanup Day, April the 13th, from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. And there are flyers out on social media, on the website. We'll be meeting at 7 o'clock at the community park, the Bob Wallace J.C. Park, Johnson Park over in West Smithfield, and Smith Collins Park. So I challenge each one of you, if you're available, to please come, to please bring people in your neighborhood, encourage them to get out in your communities, and let's have a good crowd that day. The staff's put a lot of time into coordinating this. We have several municipalities around the county that have agreed to do it the same day. They will be adopting a proclamation in support of it for April the 13th, and they're also planning to do it those days as well. So I encourage you to come out and let's do a little work for all of the community, not just one section. This will be the entire town. So that's my ask. My request of you guys, if you are available, please do so. And then after that is the Smithfield Selma Strong Day out at Triple S, and I encourage you to go visit there afterwards as well. Just make it a Smithfield Day. That's it. Mr. Manager, I will turn it over to you for your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few things to alert the town of citizenry about. Mostly, we are going to be doing hydrant testing. The fire department will be doing that starting in mid-April. It'll continue until the end of May. So if you see the fire hydrants being opened up, it's our normal annual testing time. We have a mother-son dance scheduled on April 13th also at the Sarah Yard Center at 7 o'clock. So please, if you can, take advantage of that opportunity. We also have the district senior games and Miracle League baseball season kicking off this weekend as well. So a lot going on this weekend. The riverbank refurbishment project is underway near the water plant. We have some sheet pile driving that will be going on in that area, so you may hear the thunk, thunk, thunk of the pile driver over there for a while, and that's what is going on. Last, I will only mention the Ham and Yam Festival coming up on Saturday, May 4th. That'll take place prior to our next council meeting. So please try to take time out and come out and celebrate a little fun with downtown, support our downtown on May 4th. That's all I have.
The mayor had to step out. If there's no further discussion, we do have on the agenda for closed session. We'll entertain a motion to do that.
I'll make a motion, we got a closed session.
Second. Motion and second, all in favor?
See if the read.
He just has to,
As in the notes.
just say what it
Yeah,
is.
as in the agenda.
ECGS 143-318, to discuss relation to expansion industry and business in the area. And then we'll reconvene in here after the closed session.
Is that motion to put it on staff?